Hello, my name is Huerta Migus, and I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Museum Services at IMLS. It is my great pleasure and honor to be providing you with this overview of how IMLS works on behalf of museums, with special attention to accomplishments in 2021 and plans for 2022. Before I begin, let me thank you all for your investment and commitment to museums by participating in Museums Advocacy Day this year. For those of you new to the agency, IMLS is the largest federal funder of libraries and museums, whose mission it is to advance, support, and empower America's museums, libraries, and related organizations through grant-making, research, and policy development. In my presentation today, I'll be touching on our FY 2021 grant-making, our current state of operations for FY 22, and finally, IMLS's work to advance the field through research, policy, and partnerships. Let's get started. We'll begin with an overview of IMLS's grant making to museums in FY 2021. In FY 21, the Office of Museum Services, or OMS, engaged in two major funding efforts: our 6 core funding programs, as well as an entirely new program, the IMLS American Rescue Plan grants for libraries and museums. We'll begin with an overview of the IMLS American Rescue Plan grants. In this program, there was a line of funding disseminated through IMLS's largest funding vehicle, our Grants to States program for libraries. The other line of funding consisted of $15 million in discretionary grants for libraries and museums, which I'll be focusing on today. In order to ensure these funds were able to meet the needs of libraries and museums as responsibly as possible, the agency held itself to a directive to get these awards made in calendar year 2021. This required a joint effort between the Office of Museum Services and the Office of Library Services, resulting in a funding program that differed significantly from the previous award program funded by the CARES Act. Specifically, the awards for the American Rescue Plan grants were smaller, enabling the agency to reach more organizations with this funding. We were also able to request and get approved a simplified application for the awards. And finally, these innovations allowed for a condensed grant-making timeline, with awards announced only 4 months after the application deadline. IMLS is very proud of the reach of this program. As you can see, we received nearly 600 applications and were able to fund nearly 70% of those applications. You can also see on this graphic how funds were distributed across institution type, with museums receiving 2/3 of the funding, which was also proportional to the percentage of applications received from museums for this program. These funds also reached across the country, with awards made in 49 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. Another significant outcome of this program is our ability to reach and fund so many first-time awardees. As you can see, 27% of awardees for this program are first-timers, which allows for the agency to continue to expand its reach and relationship with the field. In addition to the opportunity to serve the field through the American Rescue Plan grants this year, the Office of Museum Services team continued to administer our existing 6 core funding programs. Museums for America, our largest program, which also includes 2 special initiatives: Museums Empowered, focused on supporting professional development opportunities for museum staff, and Inspire grants for small museums, focused on small awards accessible to small museums of all types. Also, our National Leadership Grants Program, which is our field advancement program that supports research and national collaboration projects. Our Native American, Native Hawaiian Services Grants for museums, which is available to support tribal museums, as well as cultural organizations that primarily serve Native Hawaiian audiences. And finally, our Museum Grants for African American History and Culture program, which is dedicated to supporting and strengthening the staff and organizational development of African American heritage institutions. As you can see from this slide, our core funding programs provided an additional $38.7 million in funding, over 253 awards. As we further explore the numbers of our FY21 core funding efforts, we can see that a total of 975 applications were received for all programs, with 20 to 30% of applications being awarded in most programs. Increased application numbers helps make the case for the need in the field. As you can see, FY21 numbers increased from FY20 application numbers, which was already building upon a 20% increase from fiscal year 19, mirroring the need in the field due to the ongoing impacts of the pandemic. While the need clearly exceeds our available funding, IMLS was able to fund projects in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico between our 6 core programs and the American Rescue Plan Grant Program. As I close out my overview of the Office of Museum Services FY21 grant-making activities, which increased by a factor of 50% thanks to that American Rescue Plan Grant Program, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge a critical resource without which our grant-making could not happen. Practitioners and experts like you. IMLS's discretionary grant programs are powered by hundreds of museum professionals from all disciplines, experiences, and geographies. Every application submitted is reviewed by a panel of your peers. Service as a peer reviewer not only ensures the integrity of our award-making process, but is also a vital channel for keeping the agency up to date with practitioner perspectives. I would like to share a very special thank you to the more than 500 individuals that served as peer reviewers this year, especially in the face of so much professional and personal turmoil. IMLS is always seeking new perspectives to add to our reviewer pool. You can find this application at the URL listed on the slide. And now on to our current fiscal year overview. For FY22, IMLS has submitted a request for $42,515,000 in funding for the Office of Museum Services as part of the total $265 million request for the agency. These requests include a $2 million increase in funding for the Museum Grants for African American History and Culture program, and a $4 million request to engage in planning and development of the new grant program to support American Latino heritage and culture. Other agency requests include $1 million for the Office of Research and Evaluation, focused on reviewing IMLS's grant making and processes through an equity lens, and an additional $1 million in administrative cost to increase the agency's capacity to continue to serve the field effectively. Here's a bit more detail on the breakout of the $42 million OMS request across our core programs. You can see that the request maintains level funding for all programs with the exceptions of our African American history and culture and New American Latino program, as noted earlier. The OMS team is well into the grant-making process for fiscal year 2022. This year, we received more than 700 applications for our 6 core programs by the November 15th deadline, and are in the process of moving those applications toward review. Announcements for awards will be made in late spring and summer 2022. We are also beginning the process of developing the next round of solicitations, which will be released in mid to late summer 2022, so keep an eye out. And as a reminder, the OMS team is available for questions year-round. Please don't hesitate to reach out with your ideas and questions. Finally, I'd like to take a few minutes to share with you all of the work that the agency does beyond grant making. As you will see over the next few slides, IMLS works diligently to advance practice and elevate the profile of the power of museums throughout the federal landscape and through strategic partnerships and initiatives. First, I'd like to share with you 2 IMLS initiatives that have been particularly impactful over the last year related to the pandemic. The first is our REALM project, a partnership with OCLC and supported by a robust ecosystem of expert practitioner committees that generated new research on the transmissibility of COVID-19 virus on a variety of museum and library surfaces and materials. The valuable science from this project is available through reports and resources on the REALM website, as are a number of professional development resources to support leaders on the use of REALM research, as well as decision-making during times of crisis and other prolonged disasters. A new initiative launched this year as a partnership with the CDC and administered by ASTC, AAM, and the Network of the National Library of Medicine is the Communities for Immunity project. Communities for Immunity leverages the power of museums and libraries to serve as critical resources for increasing vaccine confidence and access to public health information in this time of need. Supported by a healthy ecosystem of museum associations, including the Association of African American Museums and the Association of Children's Museums, this initiative has funded more than 100 library museum outreach efforts to date, with tremendous impact. IMLS also partners with museums and museum service organizations to advance practice in the field. Here are 4 of our field partnerships that were renewed in the past year that speak to the current needs of the field. The Museums for Digital Learning program, led by History Colorado in partnership with the Field Museum and Newfields Lab, is focused on the development of a central hub for access to online collections and lesson plans to make the nation's collections available to K-12 educators. The MDL team provides technical assistance to museums interested in contributing to the platform as part of this effort, and we are always seeking more museum participants. You can learn more about the program at museumsfordigitallearning.org. Museums for All is our continuing partnership with the Association of Children's Museums that is nurturing a national network of more than 800 museums of all disciplines and in 49 states that leverages the SNAP program to offer equitable access to museum visitation. More than 3.6 million Americans have visited museums over the life of the program, and with the growing need across our nation, the impact of this effort is more meaningful than ever. If your museum is not yet participating, please visit museumsforall.org for more information. And last but not least, IMLS continues to make capacity building and organizational growth accessible for the field through our MAP and CAP partnerships. The MAP program, which has been in place for more than 40 years in partnership with AAM, provides museums with the opportunity to enter a year-long assessment experience to strengthen practice across 5 areas of operations. CAP, our longstanding partnership with FAIC, also provides intensive peer review consultation to small and mid-sized museums to improve the conservation of the nation's collections. Both of these programs are application-driven, so I encourage you to explore these opportunities if you have not already. If you have or are participating currently in any of these programs, don't forget to share their value in your storytelling. Moving back to the federal space, IMLS is also very engaged with the White House and White House priorities. The first issue that we have been committed to as an agency is responding to White House priorities around equity in the federal government. The IMLS has an agency-wide equity plan in development that speaks to internal operations as well as our service to the field, reflected in some of our FY22 funding requests outlined earlier in this presentation. IMLS is also very involved in the area of tribal engagement. We participated in the White House Tribal Nations Summit in November and recently signed on to the Native Language Preservation Memorandum of Agreement, which allows us to lift up the important work IMLS is able to fund through our grant making in this area. IMLS has also been hard at work elevating the power of museums to support democracy and civic engagement. In response to recent White House executive orders on supporting voting rights and combating myths and disinformation, IMLS is compiling resources to lift up existing practice in the field and support replication. Be on the lookout for more resources on the IMLS website. And as part of our work to elevate the value of museums in the wake of the Build Back Better framework, we hope that you have seen the excellent video by the second gentleman, Douglas Imhoff, singing the praises and importance of our cultural institution in our nation's healing and recovery. IMLS's federal partnerships also continue to grow. Having signed on to the MOA for the coming semi-quincentennial, or more easily stated, America 250. We've also renewed a partnership with USCIS to support museums and libraries as resources for encouraging naturalization and access to citizenship. We also continue our partnerships with other cultural agencies, including the National Park Service, NEA and NEH on the Save America's Treasures program, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture as a founding partner supporting the launch of their HBCU History and Culture Access Consortium project. These are just a sampling of our efforts to better connect the federal government with the power of museums. And last, but definitely not least, IMLS, through our Office of Research and Evaluation, also pursues foundational studies and research efforts to document and advance practice across the field. The Understanding Social Wellbeing Impacts of the Nation's Libraries and Museums report is the culmination of the agency's Community Catalysts initiative and shares the results of an exploratory study to understand the indicators of social well-being that libraries and museums most directly impact in the communities they serve. A new program launched in October 2021 is the project to pilot a national museum survey at IMLS as an analog to the existing public libraries survey. Led by both the Research and Museum Services offices, This effort is building on lessons learned from previous efforts and existing data collection tools in the field. Envisioned as a 2 to 3 year long project, the goal of this pilot is to establish a longitudinal data set that meets the rigor of federal data collection and enables better storytelling for the field. And finally, a reminder about our market analysis and opportunity assessment of museum capacity building programs report. This publication provides valuable insights for museum leaders, funders, and policymakers about the importance of investing in capacity building efforts in museums. Both of these reports and news about the National Museum Survey Pilot can be found on the IMLS website. Thank you for your time today and for your participation in Museums Advocacy Day. We at IMLS are inspired by the work of the nation's museums and are honored to be of service to you. Good luck with your efforts.